Okay, we'll make it start now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. So this is a March webinar, and it's part of our series, our monthly webinar series at the Circular Economy Powered Renewable Energy Center, CEPREC. And today we are privileged to have Dr. Patrick Schroeder from Chatham House to take us on the topic on circular solar mini-grid value networks. So he is a senior research fellow at Chatham House, and he has done quite extensive work in the area of the whole circular economy, and we are really looking forward to hearing from him today. So thank you once again for joining, and I will hand over to Patrick.
Okay, thanks, Mariva. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Oops, sorry, I need to share again. Here we go. Okay, great. So yeah, thanks for joining. This is some work that we've done under the work package 5 under the CEPREC project. So working here together with University Namibia, trying to understand more on solar, circular solar value chains or value networks. So this is still a work in progress, but it's actually quite promising, I think. And these are the various aspects that I'm covering today. So looking at how to move from the value chains concept to circular value chains or networks, and what it means for solar in particular. Yeah, I have various diagrams I'm showing, also ones that I've adjusted. I've had some played around with some of AI, and it's actually quite interesting what it can do now. It's quite good. Maybe, yeah. Also looking at some of the tools that I've looked at for mini-grid development, and some thoughts on how circularity can be better included into those. Some stakeholder mapping, then looking also at the policy dimension, and here we've done already some analysis for the context in Nigeria, but then also next steps, what it means for CEPREC and the research we're doing. So I think I'll speak for about 30 minutes, and then after that we can have a discussion. So I also look very much forward to your questions or any feedback that you have. Feel free to just drop this in the chat also as I'm talking. I think you're probably familiar with this. I won't go into too much detail, but the very original value chain concept by Porter is often used, but it's changed quite a lot. But some of this is very much looking also at the company level. Some of these aspects here are still relevant, also for circular mini-grid value chains or networks. The various activities that are happening around the value chain. Also looking at, say, the set of choices, what specific choices actors within a value chain or value network do, and how this affects others involved in this network. This just as an intro, because what people in the circular economy research space have done, they've tried to take this concept, that framework, and then look at how that would work in a circular system. And so you can see visually it's changed quite a bit. And so there's the different value chain stages included. The interesting part there is obviously the inbound logistics and how that connects with reverse logistics and recovery. And these are also relevant for mini-grids and the solar value chain. So this is the publication here, if you're interested to go into more of this. And this is it's quite interesting that Martin Stucci was involved in this publication, because he's quite active as a business consultant, informing a lot of European companies on their circular journey. So it's they're using this framework also to help or advise companies on how to make the shift. So based on this work, there's also what's been developed, the Circular Business Model Innovation Framework, and that's specifically Nancy Bocken and her team. And they're very much looking at these aspects around value capture, value creation and delivery within the circular business model. So how does the circular strategy relate to the value proposition and lifecycle thinking underpinning all of these stages? And that particular diagram is from this publication here. Again, I put this there, towards a circular solar power sector experience with a support framework for business model innovation. And they were part of a EU-funded project that was called Circusol, that ran from 2018 to 2022, like an innovation action project under Horizon 2020. And they're looking at various, let's say, different circular business models for the solar sector. They've been looking at product service systems, and in the publication, this the table here maybe, they've looked at specific case studies, different businesses in Belgium, Switzerland, and Germany. And on the right-hand column, they've looked at the various circularity strategy that have been adopted by these case studies, by these smaller businesses. And many of these are relevant also for our context of the CEPREC project. Right, you can look at this reuse of PV panels, repurposing electric vehicle batteries, optimization, lifetime extension through monitoring maintenance. For example, here we talked about inverters. That was part of some other, the more technical work package that CEPREC included. So again, recycling or take back of panels. Again, like repurposing of batteries, often mentioned. So there's quite like a few in terms of the strategies that European solar business use and the mini grids. I think they're very similar. Obviously, then in practice, they're different. I've tried to, looking at this, I tried to find out more about the companies, what happened to them since that project, because it ended 3-4 years ago now. I think most those businesses, they're still active, but I think they still have challenges scaling. So the circular solar is still kind of nascent, even in the European context, and despite the project. But there haven't been actually that many circular solar projects underway. So it's still very nation needs, and we need to do a lot more on that. That's also, I guess, reflected in current depictions of how the value chain works. So I got this here from Ambienta. I think it's an Italian organization showing the value chain and the different stakeholders and different core activities. And you can see they've included at the very end, in the decommissioning part, there's the PV modules, recyclers, reuse. So that's kind of like added on to the value chain, but it's still not, I think, conceived in a proper circular way. So I guess more work needs to be done that, and I would say probably for the African contract, the mini grid solar mini grid value chain is also in most cases still quite linear. So what do we also, now going into some more detail, what a circular mini grid value chain has to offer? Obviously, there's what comes out of the mini grid in terms of the panels. How do you recycle it? How do you recover potentially the silver? But also what goes into a mini grid either when it's installed for the first place or later on. So repaired inverters, but also second life EV batteries. So these are parts of it. And on the technical side, we have also experts in CEPREC who are looking at the specific details around, okay, what are the standards that should be applied for second-hand EV batteries, and what are the specific aspects of inverter repair. Well, I've reviewed quite a bit of materials trying to find more what's already happening. So this is from the Sustainable Energy for All. There's a lot of discussion on how to localize the solar value chain. So you can see the original diagram. What I then tried to do, gave some instructions to ChatGPT to create a circular, let's say a circular solar mini grid value chain by adding components of repair and refurbishment, and then the recycling and end of life. And so then what are the additional benefits, right? So in addition to the job creation, reduced pricing, electrification. So, and that's the reduced e-waste generation, but also lifetime extension of equipment, etc. So that needs a bit more work. But just like the concept of such already brings in additional components to the value chain. So I've done a little bit more. This is also just like a publication that came out last year from Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership, trying to conceptualize also what a circular solar PV value chain looks like. And that includes many aspects already. You can see all the different stakeholders on the side. So very much adding the end of life, disassembly services, repair. But what I then try to do is, and again, I used, in that case, I used Gemini, the Nana Banana, what this would like for a circular solar mini grid, and gave instructions. And it came up actually with this figure, which I think works quite well. So very much specifically about placing the mini grid system at the center, and then the various second life applications. You see the green circle that's there, very much around diagnostic testing, the repair part, but also the households, really important. Also the functions or the usage, what the mini grids are used for, the agribusiness, cold storage, electricity for school. So adding also these new stakeholders that you wouldn't find in a European circular solar, like community charging hubs, for example, or used household battery backups. Then at the end of life, again, how does the collection work? So I think that is quite a good, maybe not perfect, but it's actually quite a good extension from that previous diagram, and specifically now what it means for mini grid. So I think this is something we can also within CEPREC work with further, and for example, going forward in the publications as a framework that can help us to unpack a number of like as an analytical approach towards understanding the mini grid value chain or network. So you remember the initial figure that I showed. I also tried then again, what would this circular value network mean for the solar value chain? Again, it's actually quite good in terms of the details, identifying the different, let's say, practices around the value chain, what needs to happen, and the various stakeholders involved in each of these. Okay, so what I've been doing then also recently, I've tried to understand a little bit what kind of tools are there for mini grid development, again, this is the Sustainable Energy for All, who's got this solar mini grid value chain dashboard, and it helps developers, I think, with their planning. I'm not sure if you've used that before. It's quite a good dashboard, but again, from the circularity perspective, there's a few gaps, and it doesn't really allow to plan for a circular mini grid from the outset. For instance, in that box you can see here in the top left, there's different scenarios that are options in terms of, okay, all the equipment is imported, and all the boxes are ticked there at the moment for this case. But there's also the option, okay, let's say some of the equipment is assembled locally, and that would have impacts on, for example, the import tariff, or different other aspects of the finance. But then there's also the option manufactured locally. So some of the parts could be locally manufactured. I think we wanted, if that's an option, or for a circular mini grid, a good option would be to have also a refurbished equipment scenario. So another column where you could have, okay, like the battery, for example, has been a refurbished EV one, but at the moment we don't have that option there. That, like, if we look at to the right again, when it comes to the cost breakdown, the mini grid cost structure has these different parts, right, for different components, etc. But as far as I could tell, a lot of the end of life costs weren't included. So that's another, let's say, bit of a blind spot for the development, because it doesn't show the full life cycle cost of the installations. So I think that's maybe where we can also engage with, let's say, Sustainable Energy for All, propose that, for example, and yeah, if they're keen, we could provide some inputs to develop a solar, like a circular mini grid value chain dashboard. Could be really interesting to do. Around the financing, this is from the Africa Mini Grids program. I thought that was a really useful overview of how mini grids are financed, either on the left side, very much on the centrally planned way, where the government has control and provides most of the funding, versus on the very right, if you think of it like a very much free market economy, it's all done by private sector delivery, and most finance also comes from private sector. And I think most models are somewhere in between. Again, we can't really see how a circular model fits into this current financing. So that could very much also be some work to look at where, especially the subsidy design approach, where there's space to include more circularity criteria into I don't know, into EPC contracts, or like the build, operate, transfer, or do we need a different contractual arrangement for the circular mini grid, because to cover then also ongoing maintenance and repair aspects. I've looked at some of the recent handbooks and guidelines that were published recently by AMDA. Actually, most of these are just from this year, January 2026. There's actually, in these, I was sure to find something in these 70 actions for ensuring mini grids catalyze electrification sub-Saharan Africa. Sure to find something on circularity in there, but I didn't actually. So it's kind of like a blind spot again. They haven't really looked at this. There was one mention of design modularity into deployment approach. So that was an interesting piece of information, because as they say in there, this is copied from the report, utilization rates of Nigerian mini grids typically sit between 40 to 60%. So the business model accounts for 80%. So the modularity part again is central to a circular approach where you can adjust sizes depending on the actual utilization. So either add modules or take them away. So that's, I think, an area which we can also look at more. They've published quite a few just recently. Again, also this also like with in cooperation with the UK government on health and safety issues around mini grid development. So they mentioned a few things around maintenance and the maintenance part and the actors who are involved in maintenance. They are also key stakeholders for a circular solar value chain. But again, nothing generally, nothing more on, let's say, okay, what are health and safety implications of refurbished battery packs within solar mini grids, etc. And then staying with batteries, I added this diagram here. This is from a very recent Ellen MacArthur Foundation report on circular economy for EV batteries. So they're very much looking also at how to bring circularity into this. And the project focus for CEPREC is quite well because we're looking at usage and how it links to the grid or the mini grid and also consumers. So that's, I think, where we can do a bit more deep dive and I came across this one recently again showing right, so the battery second life recovery. So there's Hinkley Recycling in Nigeria. And this is David Lemmy. Apparently he visited last year. And so they're together putting together second life battery pack. So again, it's interesting. There are, other than CEPREC, quite a few UK projects trying to facilitate this collaboration. So, and there are the reason I'm mentioning it is especially looking at this circular solar from a network perspective. These are all stakeholders within our extended network, and they're all key really to create this ecosystem and broadening it out. So I've tried to also look at some, and maybe I don't go through all the details here, some future research questions that we might want to tackle, maybe not all of them, but it's also for, I guess, for others to look at. So there's a number of mechanisms that, again, I've taken those from the general literature on circular value networks. So key mechanisms here that they have: building partnerships, cooperation strategies, data management, knowledge exchange, trust building, building new expertise and skills, coordinating partnerships, and aligning processes. And within each of these, there's a range of interesting questions that CEPREC will, through our research, we will shed some more light on these. And some of those from the different work packages I'm going to look at as well. These are the different mechanisms. Again, where do they fit in let's say in a circular model? Nothing necessarily new here, but it's good to see how this can be visualized actually. Also with the loop. Then going again to the publication by the Cambridge Institute. So they have a number of policy recommendations for businesses as well. And this is another work package within CEPREC where we're advancing also discussions. Sorry, I'll just stay here for now. And these are, again, relevant. Developing dedicated circular economy package for PV. That I don't think has happened in any European country or in the UK yet. So that's still something to happen. Take back systems with regionally distributed recycling infrastructure. That is happening with, let's say, take back schemes as PV cycle. That this is one. Then public sector funds to support circular innovation and commercialization, creating demand for second life PV, recycling and recycled materials, and develop mechanisms to foster international collaboration. And they mention, despite geopolitical sensitivities, and in this case, I think this is hinting towards China, because in Europe, as in Africa, the majority of PV panels and other equipment is imported from China. So to develop more circularity into products from the design phase definitely requires also further exchange with the Chinese companies that are providing much of this equipment. So there's a long list of maybe I won't go into detail. Some recommendations on circular mini grids. Okay, so mandating the integration of circularity in rural electrification tenders and concessions. So that's often still, in most cases, not missing. I think some of the World Bank tenders might now require some information about the recycling part, but I think it's not necessarily a mandatory criteria for being awarded the tenders. Formalizing and certify the inner loop of community-based repair and refurbishment, because there might already be many circular practices happening within the community, reusing or repairing some of the parts of mini grids. Then the EPR policy schemes targeting batteries, inverters, and PV panels. So that's an area where there's quite some development, and I have a couple of other slides on this. And then creating the standards and incentives for stationary use of second life batteries. Here's an example of some work that we're doing with Nigeria, trying to understand really how to merge or how to bring together the circular economy policies that exist for recycling, and the EPR frameworks really relate to that, and then renewable energy policies. So these are two policy categories that haven't been aligned yet. It's becoming increasingly important to do so, and this will require a bit of push by the agencies respectively working on this. And then I think with CEPREC we can also create some more momentum, that there's more alignment between these policy frameworks. And I think I want to show for the publication and broadly for CEPREC, the next steps, something that we need to do is to now identify some specific case studies, find mini grids that have circularity potential. Maybe mini grids that are already in operation, so where there's maintenance necessary, where different components might need replacement, etc. Then also analyze the potential for circularity within the case studies, looking at already existing circular practices that might be undertaken there, ad hoc repairs or local repurposing, etc. And then also map the various stakeholders that are involved. So we based on these previous slides, I think we have a generic list of the stakeholders, but for each of the case studies, it'd be very interesting to see who are the actors involved or who are the actors that are missing. That also relevant to understand in order to bring circularity towards mini grids. And yeah, so this is also we're trying to get this published eventually in one of these journals, and that will take maybe a few more months or throughout the year. So we need these the specific case studies, the direct also information off the ground. Otherwise, it all remains too conceptual, but it's not grounded in the actual experiences, the actual practices. So if you're not part of CEPREC, but if you're working on mini grids, so that's maybe also a cooperation opportunity where we can connect later after the webinar, or even now, if you have suggestions, we can also chat on that. Okay, that's me. I'll stop here. Yeah, very much look forward to any comments that you have or additions, and I think many of you probably have a lot better insights from the ground if you're involved in mini grid development. So really keen to learn more from you.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for that insightful presentation. So we will open the floor now to questions. I see one person, Naomi, please feel free to unmute and speak.
Yes, hi, Patrick. Thank you for the floor. So funny enough, like as a UNIDO, we have a project to promote circular economy on off-grid renewable energy equipment, which is of course targeting this PV, the mini grids and then off-grid PV systems. We just finished like a policy development together with the Federal Ministry of Environment, and then it was already validated in February, and then probably it will be submitted to the cabinet soon. Like idea is definitely to promote this circular economy practices, especially for the encouraging like end of life or like used equipment to be like refurbished or repaired or circulated, no? And then also just to maybe it might be relevant to that audience that we are going to initiate the support for the pilot business model demonstration of the exactly that you mentioned on this energy for as a service model, so that we encourage that proper handling of the equipment to ensure that the circularity. But for that, probably I need to speak with you, Ethan, separately on this to explain what we're planning and then how we can promote that idea in Nigeria. Thank you. It's just a comment, so then it's not a question. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for joining, Naomi. That's great information. You're already also progressing on policy, and yeah, if you have any publications with links, you can feel free to put these in the chat, and then we can also catch up later to learn more. So how can CEPREC then also work closer with UNIDO in the Nigerian context? I think that's great. Is this sorry, I have a question too. Is this now only for Nigeria, or is UNIDO doing this also in other African countries?
I mean, currently it's only in Nigeria because that fund already provided, and then we started this project a few years ago. So, but of course, the same idea can also try out with the other countries in Africa as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. Thank you. Lucy, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you so much, Patrick. That was really fascinating. Hello again, Muiwa. Nice to see you both. Yeah, I really enjoyed your talk, and I have a question, well, a comment and a question really. And it's about, you touched on it, but I'd be really interested to hear more about your take on the role of finance and ownership, because based on as you mentioned, and also based on some of the research I've done with others, the nature of the financial structure of a project can have a huge influence on the technology that gets procured, and then in turn, whether that technology is whether it's possible to even repair that technology, whether there's any structure for maintenance, which has huge implications again for a circular value chain. So yeah, I'd be really interested in your take on particularly, well, not only when you're talking private development, but also if it's state-owned as well, but just how some of those bigger structural issues, and then obviously, as you mentioned, with most of the technological components, whether they have or haven't been assembled, they'll nearly always be imported. So how you deal with that as a huge challenge at the same time as trying to implement levels of circularity?
Yeah, great question. And I don't think I have the right answers, because the financing part is also not necessarily my strong expertise. But again, as I tried to show from some of the tools that are available, when it comes to, let's say, cost calculations, so the circularity aspect it doesn't seem to be possible to factor that in from the project design. So I think maybe if we start working from having better tools, that will then also show where the value proposition of a circular model is. But I might be wrong. I could see actually initially it would specifically be more government funded, rather than the private sector fully developing circular models. But yeah, I think maybe that's something we also need to discuss further. Again, I think insights from developers and finances of mini grids. I think that would be really useful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amara? Sorry, 1 second. Can you mute yourself?
Hello.
Sorry, I think
Can you hear me now?
yes.
We can hear you.
This is Amare from Addis Ababa University, from the Ethiopia section. And thank you for your presentation. It was a very good one. So I just have some question. I think you have mentioned that on the implementation phase, the mini grid component might actually will be held by the communities, by utility companies, and also even by private developers. I want you to tell me that about the community-owned type of project. I mean, the practicality, there are projects which is community-based, and what is the success rate, especially on the technical expertise part? Because on the community-owned part, so one of the challenge that we have seen on the research as well as on the practical point of view, the technical expert who actually try to operate that specific site, if we give them a training, definitely they will leave that specific small rural community to the center of the city to get employed and also to get a good salary. So how you do propose to tackle that type of problem, and also how you can actually tell us the practical application which is involved, especially on the sub-Saharan Africa. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, thanks for the comment. And I wasn't aware of that, but it makes sense. So if you provide technical training to the community, or the person receiving the training will be looking for new opportunities. I'm not quite sure how to address that topic issue. I think maybe it's something we also need to think through for CEPREC if we do trainings. So maybe it shouldn't just be one person who receives training, but more broadly embedded in the community, so that the community can deal with smaller issues, but then also has, let's say, there needs to be a backup engineer who comes, even if this engineer or technician is not based in the village, there should still be some arrangement in place for regular kind of like assessments. Anyway, yeah, even if I think if the ownership is with the community, it doesn't necessarily mean all the responsibility. Everything also needs to sit with the community. So there needs to be some service provision that is not dependent only on the community. I'm not sure if that helps. Was just trying to think through some of the potential solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we will keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and you are you involved in mini grid development?
Yes, I have been involved on the community energy project on the CSET, if you are aware of the one which is funded by the UK government. And also I specifically worked on the not actually on the solar mini grid, but on a small scale mini hydro in Malawi. And that specific site, it is one of its kind. And also we have seen a lot of these types of issues and how they can actually try to handle it, even on the community based of, there is a social group which actually runs the community energy part. So that is what I have actually involved on that specific. And also there are sites, of course, here in Ethiopia, especially on the small scale hydropower plant. So one of the challenge is actually retaining those technical experts which actually operate that site on the specific rural area. So that is the challenge. I think it is addressable based on one of the one of the recommendation which is actually given is the challenge is having educated person on the rural areas. One is the challenge. And if it is successful to have educated women on that site, if you try to educate them, they can actually they have actually a least opportunity to leave the community, and that is the way forward we are actually taking on this type. And of course we will try to harness from the different research, and also thank you at the same time. Thank you for the presentation, as well as thank you for the invitation.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Amara. I think that's a good point that you just made there, that women will play a key role in the community. So, and that will be also of interest for Selma, who's on the call, based in Namibia, because that, as part of CEPREC, also the gender aspect will be relevant. So, training provided to the women in the rural areas, that can address the issue, because I guess women are less likely to go away into the city, but so they will probably be more reliable than the men in maintaining the grid.
Yeah, thanks. I think I came across a study recently where they did in India and looked at female-owned. Well, the conclusion was that female-owned solar businesses were more likely to last longer term. But I will send that to you. But I was going to pick up on Lucy's question, and I don't know if you can give us a bit more. So she's raised something about the whole idea of imported, most of all these components are imported from China. And as we know, there's more and more, when I say, beginning to be more closed loop. And that poses some challenges for the whole circular economy in terms of refurbishing and co. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, with the way things are imported and manufacturers are trying to, is more closed, the systems are more closed. I think we're seeing it. I don't know if Lai is still here, but from the power electronic side of things, I think most manufacturers are trying to more or less make it tamper-proof, so you can't repair or anything. So I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about that, maybe from a policy angle or from I don't know.
Yeah, I think that comes down. Or did you want to ask Lucy on that?
No, well, I was asking you, but I don't know if Lucy wants to, if Lucy has any thoughts as well.
Yeah, thanks, Mui. Well, yeah, you kind of echoed my thoughts really. As particularly around the tamper-proof, a lot, at least for some mini grids and also some smaller scale systems, they're designed to be quite hard to break into and to fix. But that does depend a bit on scale, I think. Anyway, sorry, yeah, I'd be keen to hear a bit more on that as well. So
Yeah, in that case, it comes down to the design standards again, where the standards set, and what I've been following in the EU context a little bit is the Eco Design for Sustainable Products regulation, which is ongoing, but there's also an eco design process for PV related equipment. So that and there are like design principles that they're trying to include as, let's say, mandatory in terms of, okay, durability, but modularity, repairability, for electronics more broadly, but including also PV products. So that's not a quick solution, really. This will take time, but it'll be hard, yeah, to bring circularity into systems that were designed to be tamper-proof, where you can't necessarily easily access and conduct repairs. So that's very hard. So you need to go upstream into the design phase. The question around that obviously is then how much influence does European design standards have on Chinese manufacturers? So there are some discussions, but these are, yeah, again, questions. It's really questions around agency. Where are the design decisions made? So this is, yeah, maybe we can also think through a little bit more how African standardization agencies maybe can play a role in some of that, plus the multiple development agencies that are involved, because that could be also a strong voice towards the manufacturers and kind of what type of products are needed. I remember actually, Googler, the initiative, they've done some work with the University of Edinburgh on repairability of various solar products, including solar lanterns. And some years ago, we had a workshop there, and very practically, they asked us to try and open like various types of products, and it's quite a difference in terms of what's screwed together or what's glued together, and how easily things break or are repairable or not.
Hey, thank you very much, Patrick. Any other last question?
I think there's a good question that just came in from Jana. If secondhand products from Europe replace new products from China. I mean, the secondhand products from Europe would also originally be from China, I think, in many cases. But that is an option for second life batteries. I think that's a discussion. But there's always still the end of life issue, even if it's secondhand. So there always needs to be a solution also for the end of life. Yeah, I'm not sure if it fully answers your question, but it'd be interesting, Jana, if you're with GIZ, if GIZ is actually thinking or working on projects or also maybe funding projects related to circular solar. That could be another also area for GIZ to explore more. Because I know GIZ is working on other circular related topics like circular textiles in, for example, some of the South Asian countries. Circularity also, there's various work streams within GIZ. So maybe circular solar could be also a good area for GIZ to work on in the future, if you're not doing that already.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, everyone, and thank you very much to Patrick for that session. Just for those joining, as you would have picked up, it's part of our monthly series of webinars. We have monthly webinars, and that's part of what we're just trying to engage with the general public and experts around the world on what we're doing, so we can disseminate as well as get your inputs. Please get in touch. Patrick has shared his email, but you can follow us on LinkedIn, and where it's CEPREC, as you can see on the screen, and you be updated with all our activities, and you can reach out to any of the team members. Once again, thank you, and we look forward to connecting with you in some shape in the near future.
Okay, thanks everyone.